is up, and welcome to another episode of the TrepTECH Podcast. I am here with the darker pigmented, the absolutely wonderful haired, the beautifully honey-toned voice of Ariel Renal, pointing out all of her wonderful qualities, because today we're talking about something that scares the absolute piss out of me as a white boy. Ariel, how are you doing? Because I'm shaking in my fucking cute little boots here.
I know. And I'm nervous too, to be honest, because I know it's a hot topic. But I love talking about hot topics. I love having those candid conversations that it seems we're not able to have anymore.
You love
And
shaking
it's just,
you love shaking shit up, let's be honest here.
yeah, but in a way where it's intellectual, it's open for intellectual debate. I'm not, trying to throw shade or be petty or anything. It's to have an intellectual debate, to talk about it, to express feelings and everything like that. But yeah, I'm nervous. I don't know how people are going to take it, but I guess we'll see how it goes. And I know people who are listening are like, what are y'all going to talk about? But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And we see if we keep this episode or scrape it or what we do with it.
We're gonna keep it. It might get us canceled. I'm gonna put that out there. So if you are one of the people listening and you do have a problem with this, I feel you and I understand why. This is
But I
gonna
mean,
scratch some scabs. Some freshly healed wounds might be exposed, and it might hold a mirror up to a lot of our own behaviors that feels uncomfortable. But if you sit down and really listen to what's being said, I think you'll be able to come to an understanding, or at least see some different perspectives on the topic.
right. And I mean, if we get canceled by certain people, they're probably not our people.
What do you mean by
That
our
who we
people?
I'm oh gosh. They're probably not the people we want to work with anyway.
Okay, I
Because we
wanted to
work
make
with
sure.
So, without further ado, the topic we're talking about today is, let's say, the color of business. Let's do a remake on the TrepTECH Podcast 1.0 episode, call that, because this is a totally different take. It's several years later, and it's
Yeah.
just me and you. And, a lot's been going on in the world, especially in the US. For those who don't remember, Scott is Canadian. He's in Canada. I'm here in Kansas, originally from Texas. I gotta always say Texas. I'm Black, he's white. Just to give you a rundown. But yeah, we're going to talk about the color of business.
Yeah,
Do you want me to
and
start?
I
No.
think it's safest if you do, because as a white male, I feel like I would be much more comfortable with you leading this conversation and me kind of being either the supporting or the advocating argument, because I feel like I've experienced classism, I've experienced various different types of I don't know. I've experienced my own versions of these types of things, but they've never been based on how can I put it? I don't have the Black perspective. I don't have the Spanish perspective. I don't have the gay perspective. I only have the white perspective and the male perspective. And it's not really popular right now to be hearing those perspectives. So I feel like having you get the ball kicked off and me just lending support where I can would be the best way to go.
Okay, but I want to hear your feelings, because I think that's important too.
Yeah,
Because I
well,
think people do feel ostracized, and that is what bothers me. And let me rewind and start back. So, what triggered this episode, or me wanting to talk about it and Scott saying, okay, let's do it, is that on a lot of websites, since the whole Black Lives Matter thing and the George Floyd situation, at the bottom of a lot of websites, I'm now seeing a disclaimer or wording, let's say wording, that talks about, we support Black Lives Matter, LGBTQIA, yada, 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 so inclusive. But part of it feels like a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon. And I mean, so again, touchy topic. So I'm trying to make sure I word things right.
For sure.
So on another website, I saw in the frequently asked questions, the question said something like, I believe all lives matter. And then in the answer, the person said, Black Lives Matter, and then put, the period, the punctuation period, and pretty much said they're not bending on that. And that reminded me of a conversation I had with a past client. She had an application that said something like all lives matter, Black Lives Matter, that kind of thing. And it got me so much that I was like, I need to talk about it. I really need to talk about it. And I did talk about it to her. I said, because I say all lives matter. Oh, I know I just got canceled.
I was going to say, that's not a popular thing for a Black
We
lady
just
to
got
say.
canceled.
I didn't even have to speak, and you did it to us.
I know, right? And I think the Black Lives Matter movement, all capital Black Lives Matter is very politicized. And so that's, I guess to me, it's kind of them saying, I believe in the Republican Party. I believe in the Democrat Party. I believe, like a certain organization instead of, race, creed, color, ethnicity, that kind of thing. It's like saying this organization. And it's based on the way it's worded. That's what I see, not just, in general Black Lives Matter, but like the way that they frame it is like it's the organization. And I think it loses its purpose there.
That was done intentionally, right? Like I will say that, like, Black Lives Matter was chosen very intentionally as a movement title, as a slogan, as a political agenda, big time, because it moved a lot of people and it was meant to,
Yeah.
And I'm glad you touched on the politics, and I'm glad you touched on LGBTQ. I'm glad you touched on Black, and it goes beyond that, of course, and we'll get into that. But for me, like, it's simply put, I believe in the spirit of, yes, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives 100% matter. First of all, Black people have influenced more modern day culture than any other race on earth. Our music, our food, our clothes, our slogans. When I sit down and I call my son bro, where do you think that came from? When people are saying bet, where do you think that came from? When people are sitting down listening to, the blues or a lot of 80s stuff, a lot of, like R&B, a lot of, like, where the fuck do you think all of that came from? Right? Like, Black people are some of the most highly influential people on earth. So of course Black lives matter. Spanish lives matter. Gay lives matter. Straight lives matter too, though. And that's kind of the part where people kind of miss this. White lives also fit in there too. And that's where people start to get a little bit exclusive, right? So I do believe in the spirit of what's being said, that yes, Black lives are not to be murdered in cold blood by the police. Black lives are to be given their shot, their recognition, and their credit where credit is due. Yes, Black businesses are supposed to be supported, just like white businesses, just like Hispanic businesses, just like Asian businesses, 100%. Where you lose me is in the politics and in the hate that came on the tail end of it. That's where I get lost.
Yeah, and we're in a neat situation because, and I don't know, I guess I never really noticed it just because of how we are, is that you are white, a white male, I am a Black female, but we collaborate and have this amazing presence with one another, an amazing relationship, actually, amazing friendship. And I remember mentioning it to you earlier while we were recording this version of TrepTECH Podcast and saying, this is rare. You don't see two co-hosts on a podcast that are on completely different ends of the spectrum.
Unless they're married. Like I've seen it in like couple stuff occasionally, but I don't see it very often outside of the relationship space.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, I am married to a white guy. He's absolutely amazing. And we have conversations like this as well. We talk, deep about, the differences. We laugh about it. We're able to have debates and talk about how things are being portrayed in the media and stuff like that. I have a question for you though. What are the feelings you have? How does it make you feel as a white male?
In the current culture?
Because I know they talk about inclusivity, but it seems like white people are excluded.
Which, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've noticed it on two sides of the fence. Okay. So I will honestly say that as a white male in modern society, I'm gagged. And it's not because I want to say anything hateful. You've seen me around people of all different types. When I was a kid, white kids kicked my ass because I was too native. Native kids kicked my ass because I wasn't native. I'm fucking Spanish. Okay.
Mhm.
I look white as shit, but my bloodline is white and Spanish.
I
Okay.
did not
So
know that.
no one knows that. Okay, like on paper, I checked the white box because I passed, so good enough. But like my mom is white, my dad has the Spanish side in him. My grandmother literally looks like an abuela. Like she
Wow.
my grandmother looks Spanish as shit. But further down the bloodline, like you can't really see it. My dad looks white, I look white. And again, I don't tick white because of any advantage. I personally think in the current culture, white is a bit of a disadvantage simply because like I work for a diversity and inclusion team, produce podcasts for them. And the shit that white CEOs are getting, like having to go down the pipeline now, they're not allowed to choose people based on performance anymore. They have to choose you based
Oh,
on gender or, well, here's the thing is like, I got accused of wanting black guests on my show as tokenizing. But I was like, at this by that same ticket and on the same other side of that fence, like you want to be included for being black, but you don't want to be tokenized. I
yeah.
I personally would rather include you on my show because you're an amazing podcaster and you know your shit, regardless of what you look like or what someone else told me I have to do based on protocol or policy. So like there's a lot of white CEOs and business owners out there who are having to navigate things they've never had to navigate before, and they don't feel that it's necessarily the right criteria to be making these decisions on. I feel like I have to very much, and like I said, it's not for being hateful, but I'm not allowed to express my opinions on any of this stuff simply because my opinions are not welcome. You know, I've had people come to me and say you should be inclusive with your team. My team is literally 4 white guys and Ariel.
Yeah, I was about to say, and me.
And people are saying like you need to be more inclusive. You need to be more inclusive. Yes, my clientele are white. They're Spanish. I work for black people. I work for Asian people. I work for everybody. Who I have on my team are the people who come forward and say, I want a job. And they're amazing at what they do. That's how I hire. Now it turns out editors, they're white stoners, man. They're what I'm sorry, but they are. They're white guys who like to smoke weed and sit there at their computer for hours in their pajama pants and fucking edit podcasts.
And
Like,
honestly, because we talk about branding a lot, I think your branding brings in that type too.
well, it's skulls and
You know,
crossbones and all that. Like, yeah, exactly. You
yeah,
know,
and I know that's not off-putting. You just love pirates,
well,
and
absolutely. But I
so
will
some people
say,
may look at that and be like, this is not the right fit because they don't know you. I've never ever felt less than or discriminated against or anything out of the 7 or so years I've worked with you. I mean, absolutely just loved working with you. And
Well,
that's
yeah.
why I wanted to bring this to light. Go ahead.
And you're the best at what you do. Like, I didn't hire you because I needed to add a black girl to the team. Literally, you, right from day one, could do everything I could not, you know? And we did Google why once, and it did say because you were black and you're a better tactician than white guys, but I don't buy that. Do you remember that when we Googled
No,
that
I
shit?
don't.
No, holy shit. Like years ago, we Googled it. It was yourself, myself. There was another black lad on the team, and there was a Latino lad on the team at the time. And we Googled it for fun to see just why. And it literally said in military operations, black people are favored because of their advantage in tactical situations. Apparently, your mind works more tactically than mine does, which, I mean, I doubt it's a skin tone thing. It could be a culture thing. It could be a conditioning thing. Like maybe the conditions that people are raised in creates a different mindset. But
Yeah.
like it made me laugh so hard when I Googled that because I was like, fuck off. No way. Like, really? This is why Ariel's amazing at what she does? But truth be told, like it wouldn't matter. If an Asian dude came to me and could do what you did at that time, he'd have the job. You know, if it was a white woman came to me and could do what you do, she'd have the job. But you fit in with us. You
And I have the
understand.
flavor. I bring the flavor.
You know what? You do bring a little bit of spice and sass to the conversations we wouldn't ordinarily have, which I love. Like I appreciate every component you bring to our team because it's something we don't bring ourselves. We can't bring the female perspective. We can't bring the black perspective. We can't bring the systems and operations and experiential potential that you have. We can't bring the perspective based on, we can't even bring a United States perspective because most of my team are Canadian or Australian or, they work elsewhere. So the amount of wealth and knowledge and perspective you bring to us as one tiny like component of the team, one individual, is so robust that like we cannot replace your value ever. Period. We couldn't replace you if we tried, wanted to, or found someone who could do your job because you bring more than just a job to the table, right? But from a performance standpoint, you are the best at what you do. That's why I trust you with what you do. That's why you have, access to every corner of my business because you're trusted with what you do, and it's because you've shown me time and time again that you are a queen at this. You're a goddess at this. Like, why wouldn't I give you the keys and say, all right, fine, take it?
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And you've expressed that throughout the years in different ways. And I appreciate your appreciation for how dynamic I am. And I mean,
Yeah.
I feel the same way about you. Like you bring a Canadian perspective, which Canada and US are so different. You bring a music, like rock music, like we're so opposite. And I love that. I hate the word opposition, but I love the opposition that we have because we bring different viewpoints and stuff, but we respect what one another has to say. We respect each other's background and, all the shit we've gone through. We've talked about class a lot.
Well, yeah.
Because we've questioned, like, is it race or is it really class? And that's something a lot of people don't talk about.
Well, I'm a lower class guy. I grew up poor. My grandfather was a lumberjack. He lived in the woods. He had 12 kids, right? They didn't have anything.
Wow.
They went on, their kids didn't have much. Their kids developed a little more. And then they had me, my mom had me. And of course, like they didn't have much either. They're two working middle class family, two income middle class family, which I know is kind of the baseline these days. Everyone's got two income middle class, whether it's lower middle class, lower class, but it's two income family with not a lot of money, right? That's a normal thing. I would say we were lower middle.
Some people may argue that that's normal for white people.
It's true.
Just putting it out there.
But the thing is, like, my dad ran off when I was young. So my mom was single for a while and doing that. She married my stepdad like later on. And that was good. Like my experience was typical of where I grew up. But when I married my wife comes from, we'll say, upper middle class. Her uncles and aunts are upper class. Like they're a very classy group of people. And so my whole life, I have been in school with officers' kids, even though my stepdad was a grunt. He was enlisted, right? Like he wasn't an officer. So like I would rub shoulders with officers' kids, knowing that that's where my mom wanted me to be. She wanted me to be perceived as an officer's child because
Mm.
they got more respect. They were higher up in the pecking order. They were, you know, like they were classier people. And if it wasn't for that upbringing and that need to be better than what my class was, I probably wouldn't even be able to date my wife because she wouldn't be able to stand me just because of how different the values are when you're raised up differently, right? And then by that, right, we didn't have a lot of culture in my town growing up. Like there wasn't a lot of Black, there wasn't a lot of Middle Eastern, there wasn't a lot of Hispanic in my town. So where we got divided was French versus English. If you speak French or if you speak English in our French schools, you get punished for it. Like other students will beat the shit out of you if they hear you speaking English. Teachers will suspend you or put you in detention if they hear you speaking English on the grounds. So there's like literally a cultural, like driven into us from grade kindergarten on, like junior school on. There is a, you do not speak English here in our school. So there's very
Do you
much a,
speak do you speak French?
I speak both languages. I don't know
Oh
if you've
wow.
noticed. I don't know if you've noticed, but my goal in life has been to be as accommodating, considerate, and adaptable as possible.
I remember I had asked you to say the actual word for bougie, the long word, and you said it and I was like, "Oh, you sounded all French," but I didn't know like actually how much French you know.
I speak French probably 75% of my workday.
Oh, wow. I did not
Most
know that.
most of my clientele at my day job are French. Most of my clientele on my like production business side are English or English as a second language. So I speak mostly
So,
English when I'm doing business.
just real quick, say the real word for bougie.
Bourgeoisie.
See? Y'all see that? Ah!
And it's basically upper class. Bougie means you're upper class. Like
Yeah.
and
And
that's
probably
straight from
can't say the word.
France and you can Google it, right? That's French Revolution stuff. But yeah, so like we had our own divisiveness here, but it was never based on color. And people will argue that is different, but like we've had school fights break out, we've had people getting hurt, we've had a lot of shit. Like if you look at where a lot of the English in my town live, it's a lot of like we'll say public funded housing, a lot of lower income housing. That's where our English are here because English is the minority here. If
Oh.
you look, and they're all white. Now I'm going to paint that picture. We're all white, but our English live low income, and the French in town are the ones driving Bentleys and Rolls Royce Phantoms, and you know have the nice jobs and the big houses and all that. It's the French. So naturally, what did I do? Moved from an officer's kid to a French kid. Like,
Ah, that makes sense.
you know, so like because I've always wanted more out of my life, so I figured what I learn and how I carry myself is the key. And so like I'll say that right now, yesterday I had the best couple come into my store. I sell jewelry as a day job, and the most dignified couple came in. They held their heads high. They spoke beautiful, the most beautiful French I've ever heard in my life. They had money, like money, and you could tell just by looking at them. They were looking at watches for each other, and they were so pleasant and so kind and so nice to deal with. They were sweet, they were complimentary, they were like stylish. Everything about them was fucking ace. They were Black.
Oh.
They carried themselves kingly and queenly to the point where I have never seen a white person pull off that much dignity in my life.
Wow. So you threw that in there like they're French, but they were also Black.
Yeah, because most of the Black people in our town are French. So guess what that
Yeah.
does automatically? Puts them in the
And
upper class.
it's based on, like what kingdoms owned what land and,
Yep.
like what the
Colonization.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
here it's language, and wealth that defines you, not color, right? And so a
Mm.
lot of these people are you know, they're jumping into college programs here because we have French schools here, and most of the languages like from Africa, from South America, from there's a lot of French in these places.
Mhm.
And so French people are coming over and taking the French programs, which has been so nice. Like it is so nice to see color in my town. Finally, it's taken
Mm.
millenniums, but like it's finally happening. It is so beautiful to see cornrows in town. It is so beautiful to see bright colors. It is so nice to see orange look good on someone. Like you have no idea. Like I have been sitting in a town that looks like rice my whole life. And we finally got some fucking beans and we finally got some like some good stuff, some flavor in our town. And it is so nice from just a cultural appreciation point of view. Like, I'm sorry, but French people love you to death. French white people, English white people love you guys to death. I'm not, you know, like, this isn't to disrespect you. It's just that we have a specific flavor and it is not like I get palate fatigue. I want to see someone who looks different. I want to talk to someone who has different experiences. I want to hear a voice that sounds like different than mine. You know, like I don't want to be dealing with cookie cutter people every day. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. So it has been wonderful to see that shift in. But I will say that I feel as a white male, I have to be so, so, so careful of how I articulate that and who I do business with and who I deal with, even though I'm coming from a place of so much love, so much admiration, so much respect, so much just I want to be around you, with you, your friend, because holy fuck, my life has been boring for so long because I'm I'm so used to this that I want a little of that, you know. And it's like and yeah, your experiences are different and you've been brought up different, and that could be for some people really intimidating or threatening or disheartening or whatever. But for me it's like holy shit, please tell me more. I want to relate, I want to know you, you know. And so like it's been really good. But at the same time, like I said, I've been finding that on the back end of BLM, on the back end of LGBTQ, you're not allowed to be cis het white male, et cetera, because we are now the ones being excluded. People, I've turned down business deals that I was really looking forward to because, you know, a black guy or a gay guy have come up to me and they've been like, yeah, we really want to work with you. And I'm like, yes, let's do this. It's going to be awesome. Like, here are my plans. And then I've gone to their pages and their content is just anti-white.
Yeah.
Anti-white. If you're a white male, you have no business talking about Juneteenth. If you're a white male, you have no business doing this. If you know, if you're a white male and you're not hiring black women or black men or Hispanic women or gay women or gay men or trans women or trans men, then you are shit. And I'm like, that is actually hypocrisy. And regardless of skin tone, I don't respect hypocrisy. If you want to be inclusive, but then turn around and exclude people, you are not the spirit of your message. You are not the spirit of the movement. You're actually just a
Yeah.
different flavor of hate now.
Oh.
And
Oh.
that's the
That's
part
gonna
that
hit some people.
that's the part that bothers me is like I'm coming from a place of all love, but I see a hell of a lot of different flavored hate coming at me now.
Yeah.
That, and I will say that never used to come at me pre BLM. BLM has given people the voice, but unfortunately, it's given people a very hateful voice.
Yeah, it seems very divisive. And how you talked about hiring people based on, you know, merits, based on them being the best for their job. I notice in our politics, I've said that to my husband. I'm like, it seems like they're just hiring because somebody is trans, somebody is black, somebody's gay, somebody's, you know, because that's like the first thing that comes out their mouth is this is such and such who has been hired to this position and they're the first A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it's like, well, what about all the stuff that they went through in life, like their education, their travels, the struggles they've gone through. I mean, just, you know, like all the stuff that makes up a person that's more than just black, white, gay, Spanish, Middle Eastern, Asian, all the things that make up a person, because we all have so many different experiences
Well,
and culture.
I feel like they've done this, and again, I say they because obviously these agendas were moved by politics, you know. So
Yeah.
politicians and people who stand to gain from political agenda have done this because they've taken something deep. How deep is being a black woman, Ariel?
Oh, it's deep.
It's deep because you have the way you were brought up, the way your mom
Yeah.
was, the way your grandmother was, the way your grandfather was, the way your aunties and uncles were, the food you ate, the music you listened to, where you went to church, the street you grew up on, the town you grew up in, and how your school experience was, how your community experience was, how your working experience was based on the fact that you are a black woman. Would you have been treated differently? Would you have in the military had a different experience if you were a male of any color or gender, or any different gender? It's deep as fuck. But
Mhm.
these movements have reduced it to the most superficial thing.
Yeah.
Are you a black woman? Yep, tick, you got the job.
Yeah.
What about the rest of you? Right? Like they've taken something so deep and turned it into a single checkbox on a page.
Yeah.
Black owned business, support me. Yeah, but are you a good person or not? Are you,
Exactly.
are you supportive of
Exactly.
your family or not? Are you good to your brothers and sisters or not? Are you good to your customers or not? Do you take off with people's money, which I've seen happen in my own team, you know, or not?
Mhm.
Like I've had to let people go of I've had to let black people go. I've had to let white people go because they're dishonest people, not because they're black or white. Right. So
Mhm.
like you've taken something so deep and turned it so superficial that how the fuck are you supposed to build a proper business, proper relationship, proper friendship, or proper community on the back end of it? I don't understand, you know?
Yeah. And that's so true. I mean, I don't even know what to say because you said it so well.
Like,
And that's mostly what just frustrates me. It baffles me. It feels like it's something that needs to be talked about. But we can't even have regular debate anymore because everybody gets offended about everything. And so it's just like, well, how can we talk about this? How can, like, I've seen where people, like a white person, has tried to better understand what Black people go through. And so they asked their Black friends, and then the Black friend got offended. And I'm like, but they're trying to understand, they're trying to learn, and they're coming to you because you fit in that demographic. So they want to hear about your experiences to try to understand your stance and where you're coming from. But if you just shut them down immediately, how are they going to learn?
well, as a white person who has done that, like I come to you when I've got questions because I'll try to find the answers myself, but quite frankly, nothing beats human experience. So like
Mhm.
I would rather talk to someone who's lived through it. Like if I want to know how it feels to be on the receiving end of, let's say, a sexual assault by a male, I am not going to go ask a male how that feels unless he has been a male on the side. You know what I mean? Like a victim
Mhm.
of that. I'm going to ask a woman if she's been a victim of that. I'm not going to sit there and try to read it from a textbook or try to Google it online. I'm going to talk to that person and be like, holy shit, how did that affect you? What did that look like? When it happened, what were your early warning signs? When did you first start feeling scared? And if that person talks to me about it, like was it during the actual act or was there something he did leading up to that set you off and made you insecure and made you realize this person is unsafe? As having that conversation allows me to better understand and be a better man in general, right?
Mhm.
So being able to talk to you about your experience as a black woman in the world, it's been thrown in my face. It's not up to us to educate you.
Well,
No,
then who is it up to?
us apparently it's up to myself to educate myself, having only my experience and my perspective to know exactly what it is you've lived and gone through.
See,
That's
that
their
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't to me either. And so like that's the thing is like that's why I call you. A friend of mine is gay. And a lot of the times I will ask him like certain questions about it just because like I've noticed certain things. Like there was a guy
Mhm.
trying to quote unquote convert me. from being straight to gay. So I didn't understand it. I called my friend and I was like, hey, is there like some sort of glory behind converting straight guys? Like, could you be face
Oh
up with me
my.
about this? Could you honestly be face up with me about this? And he said, yeah, some guys do it for sport.
And I wonder if we're thinking about the same person.
And I was like,
And
well, holy shit. I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that for some guys, like, this is actually a sport. They go out and they try that. That gives me a better understanding. Now I can kind of see it as for what it is. Like, you know what I mean? And then he said, some guys, they like you. They have a crush on you. You're handsome. You're kind. Like, they like you and they have a crush on you. And you're not gay, but they fucking wish you were. And I'm like, okay, well, I can bring my heart to that conversation now, like, and then the trick for me is discerning which one it is. Are you trying to sport fuck me, or do you actually like have a crush on me because of who I am? And so that's tricky. Navigating that's been kind of fun. But like, I have a better understanding that this thing that used to make me uncomfortable is coming from a few different places based on a person, not gay, a person. Right. And so like, that's why I think it's so important to get the education from someone. Because
yeah.
like your experience versus, let's say, I don't know, LeBron James's experience versus, the
Mhm.
college student who just moved into my town and he is brand new here and he only knows like French, and he's now sat in a room with a bunch of English white people, French white people, and he's the only black guy in a room. I want to
All
talk to
different
him.
experiences.
All different, and they will all have different views, opinions, beliefs. Like a lot of the people in my town have literally said, like, white people are so fucking kind, they are so nice, they're so hospitable. But then I flick on something from the States and it is the opposite, right?
Yeah.
And so like, even just small town Canada to like big city America somewhere, it's a different fucking dialogue, it's a different narrative, right? And so like, it's so huge of a topic that if we as white people don't ask and come to you for guidance, for opinions, which you want, like you say you want your voice heard, but we're like, hey, I want to hear your voice, and you're like, no, shut up, go read it somewhere.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't equate. It doesn't
Well,
add up.
right. So
And it's
there's just
confusing. And I mean,
very.
I feel bad for, I was going to say white guys who are trying to understand, but I feel bad for anybody who's trying to understand, who's trying to get an as close of an inside look as possible by talking to people that fit whatever distinction that they're trying to learn about.
I've got
I
one
mean,
for you
because
that'll transcend color. This will transcend color, okay? Ariel, you're married.
uh-huh.
Does G Dubs ever come to you and ask what's wrong and you say, I'm fine, and you're not fine?
Yeah.
But then you're clearly acting like something is wrong?
Yeah.
Welcome to us coming up to black people and going, hey, are you okay? And they're like, nah, I'm fine. And we're like, no, there's something wrong here. Like, you are very upset with my presence, who I am, like, what's going on? I need you to talk to me. And they're like, go read it somewhere. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's me going to my wife and going, you okay, babe? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, is everything okay? And she's like, oh, you already know. And I'm like, what did I do? And she's like, you know what you've done. What?
Oh.
Mixed messages, right? I'm okay, but you're not. You should know, but I don't. You should. And a lot of these things are generational. So even though I personally have not done anything to offend or harm a black person to my knowing, and if I did, it's never been brought to my attention, which also doesn't help. My ancestry might have, and that's held against me too. There
Mhm.
are 6-year-old boys in Australia standing up in school apologizing for what their ancestors have done to women,
Mm.
even though these boys haven't even had the chance to fuck up. Right. So what
Yeah.
we're doing is we're literally perpetuating a society where we're paying for the crimes of our ancestry.
Yeah. Like when I went on the first date with my husband, he's white boy, South Carolina, and he's experienced, kind of like racism within his family when it comes to who he's dating. His father is a veteran, so he has a totally different perspective on things. But when I sat down with him, I asked him because when I looked at his dating profile, I was like, we are not going to match. It does not look like we're going to match at all. But when I sat down with him, I asked him, had he dated a Black person before? What is his intrigue about Black women? And he said the most beautiful thing. I cannot remember exactly what he said, but he made me feel like a queen, being Black woman, and made me feel like a queen. Like he said, you're strong. All the stuff that we normally get knocked down for, you're strong, you're dynamic, you're just all kinds of stuff. And I was just like, oh my God, wow. And that's how he treats me. And
Mhm.
it's not, I mean, every now and then we'll see something on TV about something political or whatever, and we'll look at each other and talk about it. Same with his son. We'll talk about us that, how do you see this or that? And his son was actually the other day, he was talking about kind of like you were like, it's just no flavor. White people are boring. I was like, you're white, right? So yeah, it's just interesting. And people, I mean, stereotypically, you look at him and you wouldn't think we would match,
No.
but we are perfect together. And we can have those. And he's also military.
Until it comes time to take a photograph, and then you cannot fucking figure out lighting to save your life. That's the problem you and I have. Like, but outside of that, you guys are perfect together.
Yeah, yeah. And you wouldn't know it by judging a book by its cover, you wouldn't
Mhm.
know
No.
until you get to know the person. Same thing with you. And actually, I had my husband look at something that a client sent because I wanted his perspective because, I work with the client, so I'm deep into the stuff all the time.
Mhm.
And my husband was like, "Well, it seems like it's all white skinheads, you know?" And I brought that to the client's, attention, and also the name of their program.
Mhm.
But I know the client, and the client actually said like 40% of the men that comes through the program are actually gay. Because my husband said it looks like it's a bunch of straight, white, middle-aged men.
Yeah.
But gay people have gone through the program. And I mean, some amazing testimonials.
And if it's the client I'm thinking of, I want to say part of his lineage is actually Hispanic.
Is it?
I'm not 100% sure, but his I'll tell you what, his name ain't white. His last name. So
Yeah, yeah. But I mean,
so
he is absolutely amazing. He
yeah.
is amazing. Like all the stuff that my husband said about, how it looks from the outside, I'm like, but that is not this person at all whatsoever. Like,
Right.
not at all. And I just that's how people get discriminated. They get judged by, I guess, their initial look,
Yeah.
and
Like
people don't take the time to get to know the person.
I'll tell you a story right now, super quick about my sister. Like my sister looks white. Like she's very, very white looking, but her hair is tight, frizzy curls. Like
Mm,
super tight, frizzy curls. Like if she brushes and straightens her hair, like it's thick, thick, thick. And
mhm.
if she doesn't, it grows upward. It does not grow down. Like, my sister, I'm almost 100% positive could grow a fro. Okay. Now, she cannot get a good haircut in town to save her life. And a
Mm.
black girl opened up a studio here. And I kept telling my sister, like, well, my wife was talking to me about it. And she was like, Amy should go get her hair done there. Like, if anyone's going to understand Amy's hair and get that girl looking amazing, it is that woman. Like
Mhm.
that woman will fucking transform that girl and give her something she can work with, an education on her hair that she will
Mhm.
not get here because her hair doesn't look like other people's here, you
Mhm.
know? And my sister was too scared to go in,
Oh, wow.
too scared to go in, too scared to talk to the girl because she was afraid that she was going to get judged for trying to appropriate culture or trying to be black or pretend to be black or like because there's a lot of that happens. It's like and all I'm thinking is, man, be brave enough. Now that the shop is no longer open, I guess she didn't amass enough clientele, which again,
Oh,
we're a very whitewashed community. We don't have, and she was catering to Black women specifically. And there's still not a lot of that going on here. Like, it's moving in year after year. We're seeing more and more of it. And again, I'm so fucking grateful. I'm so thrilled. But she didn't have enough business to hold up her shop. I don't know if it was an advertising thing. I don't know if she wasn't reaching her demographic. I don't know what was going on with that. But like, my sister lost her chance to go in there and learn and be, I would say more comfortable in her own skin, because she learned about someone. Fuck skin tone for a minute. She learned from someone who had similar hair to hers,
right.
right down to the
Right.
specific physical trait, right? Hair. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff like that where like Black people are scared to approach white people to do business, bring them back to business, because they're scared of racism or injustice. Like, I'm a tattooed, bearded white fucker. Like, I look like I listen to Leonard Skinner and drink beer in my fucking plaid shirt on the tailgate of my truck.
And
That
that's
is
actually
what.
my husband. He listens to Def Leppard and Leonard Skinner and Black Sabbath and
And he probably drinks beer on the tailgate of his truck. But like,
fishing and camouflage all the time.
yeah, like he could be my uncle. Like, he sounds like uncles of mine that I've got, and cousins. Like, that man could be my cousin, right? But I'm GQ. I wear suits and dress shoes. I mowed my lawn in dress shoes the other day. Like, I wear, pinky rings and fancy watches, and I slick my hair back. And like, to be fair, my friends have told me I look like a mob boss, but that's besides
I
the
was
point.
about to say that's what it sounds like.
Like, I'm not mafioso. Like, I like to be well dressed. I like to be clean cut. I like to be whatever. But you know who doesn't me coming in when they come, like when they're in my presence? It's white guys who are ill kept,
Mhm.
Black guys who are ill kept. And I'm going to use the word ratchet, but regardless of white or Black, ratchet people. Okay, ratchet people don't like me because I put effort into myself and I look like I'm upper class. And so upper class people, and regardless of color, like, I've had very well kept Black men come in and compliment my style, compliment my clothes, compliment my watch, compliment, because they like that stuff, man. Nobody is more stylish than a Black man who knows his shit. Like,
And I think a lot of it is because, it's a reflection about how people feel about themselves.
yes,
Like
absolutely.
like you said earlier, I want to be around different people. I want to learn. I love culture. And when I say
Mhm.
culture, I mean I love all of the differences that people as a human race bring to the table. I think it is just beautiful. And it's okay to be different. And it's okay that other people recognize that you're different, and it's okay for people to want to learn about, the plights that you've gone through. I've asked people about their religion and their sexuality and their race and where they live in the world, because living, like you said, Canada versus US, sometimes it's not a race thing, it's more of a language or a nationality thing. I saw that in Italy. When I would speak Italian, they thought I was African, so I felt discriminated against. But when they realized I was American, it was a totally different, feel and vibe that they gave off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I know that traveling has given me the gift of seeing things from a different perspective and meeting people from a variety of backgrounds.
My stepdad used to keep a surplus of Canadian flag related stuff, like a Canada t-shirt or Canadian like wristbands, or like a patch to sew to your jacket real quick, or like a Canadian flag to hang off your shit when he would travel
Mhm.
with white American soldiers, because Americans were so deeply hated abroad. Didn't matter what culture you guys were flying to. If Americans flew into Britain, if
Mm.
Americans flew into France, Italy, Spain, if Americans flew into the Middle East, if Americans flew into, didn't
Mhm.
matter. Didn't matter. Americans were hated. Canadians were loved. So my stepdad would hand these guys a Canadian piece of merchandise and a slogan: "Don't be a dick."
Wow. So that
Period.
reminds me, I when I was in Italy, I was in a NATO unit. So, all the NATO countries were represented there. And one of the people said something to me. They said, okay, I'm gonna pose this to you. So what do you call someone who speaks two languages?
Bilingual, doesn't matter which two languages they speak.
Right. What do you call someone who speaks three languages?
Trilingual.
What do you call someone who speaks one language?
Unilingual.
American.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I can see why. I can 100% see why. You guys live in a completely English dominated place. Even though there's Creole down there, there's French down there, there's Spanish. There's more Spanish in America than English. I'm almost positive of it.
Yeah.
But that's the overarching perception of the world, because when you guys travel abroad, you speak English.
Yep. And I had a housekeeper who was from Africa, and she spoke Turkish, Italian, English, her dialect, and I don't know how many other languages. And so I talked about her, coming to Italy and, how she got a job and all that. And she said, what you have to realize, Ariel, is that when other people travel and move to like other countries of a different language, we have to learn things quickly. We have to learn a whole language within 6 months. She said, but Americans don't do that. And I witnessed that because I would go out to restaurants with my American friends, and they wouldn't even take the time to learn the language enough to order food.
Yeah.
And then I had this one friend who we went to a car dealership right outside of the NATO base. And the guy only spoke English. He was, Italian. He was older. And actually, Naples has its own dialect as well, which is a kind of almost a hodgepodge of different languages. But he was so mad. He was like, why the fuck don't you speak English? You over here by the NATO base. And I'm like, because he doesn't have to speak English, because everybody else except for the Americans learn Italian.
Yeah, and he's from the old country, so fuck you,
Yeah.
buddy.
Yeah. So,
Well, yeah, I see it all the time. There's French ladies here that remind me of nonas. Okay, like I said, my town is 75% French. Some of these older ladies who have full-on families, their husbands learn English because they're out in the workforce. Their kids learn English because they're in school, but they never had to learn English. So they come in and they speak only French. And if I don't know French, I can't help them. What good am I? Right? Like, and I'm not going to get mad at her for not learning. She didn't have to. Like the nonas out in Italy, they don't know English. They don't need to. Their whole family's Italian and they take care of them,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like to bring this back to business. So I think like with the whole BLM tag on the bottom of websites, like I love the spirit of it. This is a Black owned business, or we support Black business, or we think that Black people are highly, highly valued. But once the politics got on board, I think it ruined the moniker a bit, because like, and of course it came out of a place of hate. Like this whole movement stemmed out of a place of hate. So where else is it going to go? Right.
Yeah.
But for me, I think as far as the color of business goes, it's white and green, black and green, yellow and green, red and green, orange and green. Like, I don't care. Purple and green, like Tangelo and green. Like, as long as you've got money, professionalism, and decency and respect, integrity, like it should be about values, not color at all. My heroes growing up were people like Pharrell Williams, Big Boy from Outkast, like people who really knew their way around audio, And growing up, I just found that Black people that I liked had way more of an ear for finesse than a lot of the white audio producers that I listened to. Hollywood has made a killing on that ear. Hollywood's made a killing on that tone of voice. I can't remember, but we were on a call the other day and you were speaking and I said that your voice sounds like warmed up honey to me.
Yes, you did.
Like, I'm sorry, but no white girl on earth has that voice. Period. You know, I've met like white French girls with like a super sweet, almost like cotton candy, light, airy, sweet, like so sweet you almost want to get a little sick, you know? But no one's got the same tonality as you. And as a podcast host, voice matters so much. Do you think I want someone on my co hosting seat whose voice is not an absolute pleasure to listen to? No.
True.
You know, so at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you're the best person for the job because your voice is so musical to my ears. And then I get into the production seat and I love producing it now because I'm listening to those nuances and those notes and the cadence of your voice. And I'm like, holy fuck, this sounds beautiful to me. And then I listen to mine and it's the opposite end of the spectrum, you know, and it's not the deepest voice on earth. Like, it's not, because again, a lot of black men's voices are very deep. They're very like not necessarily loud, but they're strong voices, very deep and strong
Mhm.
voices. I don't have that. You know, I have a very, in my opinion, a soft voice. I have a mid-range voice. And I just find the two of our voices bounce off each other and complement each other so nicely that it helps get our points across better too.
And
You
just
know,
our personalities because I can get ratchet at times, and I've had, like, my vent episodes, and I come in loud and bubbly and stuff, but it's not because I'm Black, it's because it's my personality,
right.
and that balances each other because you help bring me back down to earth, especially when I go off on my tangents, and I appreciate that.
Well, that's it. And
So
like I'm upper class, lower class, depends on the day and who I'm speaking to. Like I can walk through a low income area of my town and fit right in. And then I can
you
go have
know
dinner with the upper class and fit right in. But well, not really because I'm tattooed. Like I have hand tattoos and
right.
neck tattoos. So they know I'm different. But when they judge me. But when they sit down and speak to me, a lot of the times I can put that judgment to bed. And
Same
again,
here.
I've noticed that with again black people, Hispanic people, etc. I find you are more judged by the quality of your character and how you carry yourself than you are by the actual color of your skin.
Once maybe once people get to know you, but the initial response is usually a prejudice or
Typ-
discrimination or
typically, and that's because
stereotypical thing.
they're fitting you into a pattern. Like me, they expect me
Yeah.
to be another tattooed white boy who doesn't know how to behave.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that's not
And
the case.
I felt that as well. Like I remember, and he's a good friend of mine. And I remember like when we at first met, I told him I play piano. And he was just like, okay. And he's white. And he wasn't meaning anything negative, but I sat down and I played Fur Elise by Beethoven. And when I started playing, he looked at me like, oh my God.
You
And I'm
play the
like,
piano.
and I'm like, I told you I play the piano and I'm not a joke. It's like, I know you may think because I'm Black that I'm not trustworthy or I'll run away with your money or I'm not this intellectual to play classical music and, all that stuff. I said,
Hmm.
but I am so much more than just the color of my skin. Yes, it has an effect. Yes, I understand, you know, what Black people go through, of course. Yes, I'm proud to be Black, but also I love to experience other cultures. I hate within our own culture when Black people chastise other Black people for wanting to learn, wanting to be cultured. I actually had a friend of mine say, "You are so cultured." Usually I would get, "You're trying to be white," because, I was into all
Yep.
kinds of different stuff.
Yep.
But he was like, "You're so cultured." And I was like, "Well, thank you. That is such a compliment
Because
because
it's
that's what I want to be."
and that's the thing. And here's a big thing about that. I've noticed that like no one is meaner to black people than black people.
Yes.
And some people will stand up and argue, no, blah, 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 slavery, et cetera, et cetera. Historically speaking, every race on earth has been a slave. You look up the Irish slave
Yeah.
trade, look up the Scottish slave trade, and tell me those poor redheaded girls did not go through hell on earth. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at 1937, what happened in China. Tell me those poor Chinese girls did not go through hell on earth. Okay. Every single race has been through their turn at slavery. The Indians, look at what happened to actual India, by the way, not indigenous. Okay. Look at what happened. Look at what happened to the indigenous in America. My God. Okay. Like it's still happening in places where there are still quotas for indigenous children to be ripped out of their parents' arms at birth. Okay. It's hidden now. It's more discreet, but these crimes are still happening. Native girls are disappearing and no one's looking. Okay. So these things are happening all over the place to all kinds of different people. White girls are going missing in my town, 15-year-olds. You should look up the amount of white Canadian kids going missing all around the same age group, Okay. It is happening to everyone. But I will say in the micro day to day, no one is meaner to black people than other black people. Because what you have said literally right there and then was that you would be coined as trying to be white just for trying to be intelligent, just for trying to better yourself, just for trying to be more cultured, learn how to play a piano, learn classical music. I listen to hip hop. Okay. I listen to more
I
hip hop than
listen
you.
I listen to the heavy metal with my husband.
I was going to
Well,
say,
not heavy, but like, the
yeah.
soft metal or whatever it's called. I listen to it
You probably
and
listen to rock and classic rock
yep,
and a little bit of
I
metal.
do.
Yeah, country. You probably listen to a lot of country music if
I
G Dubs is
do.
who I think he is.
Actually, I listen to country more than he does.
Okay, so I'm putting G Dubs in a box. See me putting another white
And
guy in a box just now. He listens to
hey, and
country because he
that's
wears camo.
and that and that's because my hometown that I was raised in Texas, the radio station was country.
Yeah.
So I love me some like Randy Travis and Willie
Alan
Nelson and
Alan
John Berry.
Jackson.
And
Alan
yeah.
Jackson. Yeah, see, like
Yeah.
you listen to a bunch of white boys with mullets growing up. And like one of my favorite people on like as far as hip hop goes, like I fucking adore the hell out of Tech Nine, KCMO. He's from Kansas, man. I love,
Mm,
I love Tech Nine. He's one of the most incredible rappers. Busta Rhymes is like lyrically and from a skill perspective, Busta's amazing.
I
Like I love
love Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne. Okay, his voice grates on me because I'm all about vocals. Like
Yeah.
he literally sounds like a fly trapped in a can to me.
But his lyrics, I love his
Yeah,
lyrics, like how he's a wordsmith, and I love that.
absolutely. Like Hobson, Hobson is incredible lyrically speaking. I'm not big on like a lot of the mainstream artists. Like I'm not going to sit down and listen to like Drake, or I'm not going to sit down and listen to 50 Cent, although 50 Cent has some fucking bangers too. But like
Mhm.
No Diggity by Blackstreet was one of
Oh,
my
yeah.
favorite songs growing up, man. I fucking loved Boys to Men. Like that was that to me, that was lay her down music. Like that was good shit. Like fucking Brian McKnight,
Yes.
like I grew up to Billy Ocean, like Billy fucking Ocean, Caribbean Queen, like all that stuff. Like I loved that music growing up because to me, like I would turn on, well, I heard those city singers singing, and I'm like, you know what? I feel what you're saying, Randy, but you're not speaking to my soul. So I would go and I would listen to a lot of different stuff. Like, who is more incredible of a businessman than Jay-Z? Jay-Z owns shares in private prisons and then creates music that puts men in prison.
That
Like
that called for just a moment of silence for people to soak that in.
that was a
Mm,
jaw-dropping moment. I'm sure Jay-Z owns shares, a ton of shares in private prisons, and then creates music that raises the criminal rate in his demographic, which unfortunately and conveniently enough for him is black people, and then sends them to prison, which is legal slavery. Okay, like you want to talk to me about business and inclusivity and all that stuff, do some research, lots of research into how
yes.
business and how the prison and the music industry and business and money and contracts all fucking play together. And you will be amazed at what people are getting away with while they're distracting us with BLM. Okay, like That's what I'm trying to say here is when we're all busy hating each other for being French and English, who's benefiting? When we're all hating each other for being upper class, lower class, who's benefiting? When we're all hating each other for being every shade of caramel under the sun, who is benefiting? At the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all trying to make money. We're all trying to be good to our family. We're all trying to have friends, and we're all trying to have a positive life experience. But someone keeps driving wedges in to stop that from happening. Because if we're happy and harmonic and peaceful, there's no profit.
That was another purposed pause right there.
If you're Black, I'm going to support you and I'm going to love what you do and I'm going to hire you. If you're white and you're good at what you do, I'm going to support you and I'm going to hire you. If you're Asian and you're good at what you do, I'm going to support you and I'm going to hire you. If you're Native and you're good at what you do, I'm going to support you and I'm going to hire you. But the most important thing is you best be a fucking good person, because that's what I'm trying to be.
Values over color.
If you're bringing hate to my table, you can go sit at the little kids' table because hate is childish. You know, if you're going to sit at the big kids' table with the rest of us, you best bring your best self, because the rest of us are trying to do it too. And you've seen that, haven't you? You know, like you've been in our team meetings. We all pull up and it's literally just, what's our issues? Where are we doing well? What are we trying to solve? What can we bring to the table? How can we make this better? That's what we talk about. We don't care what the skin tone of the person bringing the message to the table is. If you've got a solution, bring it. Now, where we care about your skin tone is when we're appreciating who you are.
Yeah.
What you can do is different. Who you are and what you can do are two different things. And I don't think I should be hiring you based on who you are necessarily. I should be hiring you based on what you can do. I should be loving you for who you are, not what you can do.
Well said. Well said.
But I'm not allowed to say this because I'm white. So everything you just heard, forget I said it.
And we actually talked on this topic a lot longer than I expected, because I know we were both kind of hesitant, but it is something we wanted to talk about, obviously, because we've been talking about it for this long. But what I would really, really love is for people who listen to this episode to give your honest feedback. I am very open. I'm very understanding, and I love an intellectual discussion. I love candid conversations. So please send us your feedback. Let us know what you think. Let us know your feelings, whatever color you are. Let us know what's going on has affected you. How has it affected you in your business? How do clients respond to you? All of these different things. Let us know. I have a pod inbox. It's podinbox.com/Ariel Renal, and you can send us a voice message. And if you want to remain anonymous, just let us know within that voice message. If you don't care about being anonymous, let us know, because I want to continue this conversation and actually see what other people have to say.
Absolutely. And if anyone can help my poor sister with her hair, please reach out. But no, I appreciate you bringing this to the table, Ariel. I really do. I didn't realize I had so much input. You know, like I said, I've spent so long avoiding the topic because I'm not allowed to talk about it, that I didn't realize I had so much on my mind about it. So I appreciate you giving me the permission and the space to be able to share what I'm feeling about it. And, you know, if anyone's offended, I feel like I haven't said anything necessarily offensive, but I may have held a mirror up to some behaviors that some people might not like having a spotlight shined on. And so, you know, and again, like I'm guilty of this stuff too. We saw what I did to G-Dubs. I automatically assumed he listened to country because he likes camo. You know, like we fucking do it. We all stereotype. We all try to put people into boxes. And I've spent my whole life doing my best to just see people for what they can do and who they are. And so for me, like I'm appreciative for the chance to get on the mic and just talk about it, because I honestly think like you said, all lives matter. And I know that that got a really nasty tone. And the second you say that, it's like, oh, you just want to diminish Black lives. No, I want to be as inclusive as you claim you need me to be. But inclusive doesn't just mean you. Inclusive does mean everybody. And so you cannot fly the inclusion flag and then simultaneously in the same breath exclude someone. It doesn't work that way. So I very, very much appreciate you bringing this to light.
And I appreciate you participating in the conversation, because I know at first you thought you would just be sitting, like a fly on the wall.
Oh, I'm not leaving my house for a week at least. I'm going to stay home.
But I appreciate your viewpoints. And that's the big thing, is appreciation and respect of each other's differences. So with that, do you have any last words?
Just that thank you for listening, Ariel. Thank you for co-hosting with me. I love you. I love our listenership. I love anyone who's just going through life and trying to be a good person. I appreciate you. And thank you for tagging along this journey with us.
Deuces.